Hello and welcome to Artifacts, a living archive dedicated to preserving the first-person stories of queer, avant-garde, and underground culture, told by those who lived it. Today's episode is part of our series Silver Factory, an enthralling journey through Andy Warhol's factory, whose inhabitants included an array of characters from socialites to superstars and speed freaks. In this episode, we're honored to share a conversation with Giorno, poet, performer, AIDS activist, and one of the most electrifying figures of the downtown avant-garde. Giorno is remembered as the subject of Andy Warhol's film Sleep, but he was more than a muse. He was a tireless innovator who made poetry public and accessible. Through projects like Dial a Poem, he gave audiences free access to works by Laurie Anderson, John Cage, Patti Smith, Amiri Baraka, and countless others. His performances and records celebrate queer life and sex, even at moments of intense cultural repression, and his AIDS treatment project provided direct care and solidarity at the height of the crisis. Living and working at 222 Bowery, Giorno bridged art, poetry, and activism in ways that continue to reverberate today. This interview, conducted by Stephen Watson in 2001, captures Giorno's wit, his urgency, and his belief in the transformative power of language.
Andy exploited everyone, and every single one of them exploited him. So in my mind, it was sort of a fair trade. It was what you call a good deal. The way Andy worked was he never stole an idea once. He had all these people around him, me included, and you would give him, you would just, your mind would just say these things. Andy, this is such a great, this is, like for instance, one example, I mean, we all influence Andy a bit, but one of, and I did it almost, when I went, the movie, the Elizabeth Taylor movie, Cleopatra, Andy had done the Liz Taylor pictures, and then he and I went to the opening day. It wasn't a big opening, we just went that day, I think it was open. And we saw this, this big dinosaur of a movie. It was a bit weird, And it was more weird that it was so expensive and ugly and pop, and it cost so much money, $100 million in those days, or whatever it cost. And then it was 2 days later, or really close, the Time magazine article that I happened to see had that image of Elizabeth Taylor with sort of the hair down here, the Cleopatra look, and that's what I said there on the time. I remember the day on the telephone, I said, Andy, that's what you should do. The Cleopatra, because it's so different from that Liz Taylor look, and it's the moment of our culture. And I said it almost like not seriously, only that these were the thoughts I had, that it was the blah, blah, blah. And did nothing that Andy would do it. And he actually, as you know, he went ahead and did that as a painter.
Yes.
And that's what everybody did. Bridget Berlin or Ultraviolet, they'd give him an idea. And he, like me, I mean, lots of people who come here and they have ideas, and most of them are, or I say, that's a great idea, and I remember it and I do it. And I do that with a lot of other people, and they do it. So sure. It's an exchange. So everything was an exchange. And one time, right after Andy died, BBC did a shoot in the bunker here, and it was actually Ondine at the bunker. Ondine and Taylor and Billy Name, and I forget who else. Not maybe more, maybe one more, whoever. And this was 6 months before Ondine died, and he was really sick and really pale, and he sort of turned to me enough to make you cry. And he said, John, you were the only one who could. None of us could go on to do other things. And it was so sad. It was enough to break your heart. And it wasn't that they weren't talented or they weren't great actors. I mean, why somebody is famous and successful in this world is inexplainable. Being a Buddhist, it's karma. Your karma does it, whatever that means. It was equal exploitation. I mean, the one way it got sort of complicated, or it came out looking ugly, was after Andy got rid of you, you felt exploited, but you had been exploiting him. I mean, all those people who were his superstars, me included, were nobodies, and they never could be anybody's, and they had no careers, and they went on to have no careers, and they were just what Andy made them. They might have had a lot of talent, but it never expressed itself after Andy got rid of him. Everything one knows is first nonverbal before it becomes verbal. For me, the 60s ended maybe in 63 when JFK was shot, even though I didn't know it.
What were you doing exactly when you heard the news?
I was down in, I had this job on Wall Street, and then we heard he was shot, and I called Andy instantly, and I took a taxi up there, was there, 20 minutes later before they were, and then we just spent the whole, and then it just was happening. I mean, he was taken to the hospital and on the plane, and we were just, it was, exhilarating. It happened at around 1 o'clock. I was there at Andy's at like 1:15 or something, 20 after 1, and then we just followed the whole thing. It was so brilliant. I mean, there we are. Then they're saying things like, Jacqueline Kennedy is on the Air Force One, and she hasn't changed her suit. That the bloodstains on this pink suit are still. She refuses to change her suit. Going to Washington with blood-soaked clothes is so fabulous. It was. I mean, this like the World Trade. This exhilaration at the same time. Incredible. I mean, we hear that, and I'm saying, isn't this fabulous? And Andy said, it's the best thing she's ever done. And it's right, it was the best thing she ever done. And then 3 seconds later, both of us are weeping hysterical tears, and so that's the story. Why we were weeping for JFK was because we saw the complete failure of our own lives. I mean, Andy saw it his way, and we saw, I mean, this is 63. We saw the failure of the 1960s. And in Andy's case, I think it portended his being shot and his having to stop working, really. I mean, he went on working for the rest of his life. But those years which made Andy Warhol were finished, and his work was finished. I mean, he went on to do many great things, but the body of work was finished. Yeah. And then for me, the 60s maybe ended in the 1965. My first 34 LSD trips were taken in the Hotel Chelsea with Brian Geisen over a 5-month period. And even though that was about the 60s, something happened in those trips that one saw that this great experience one was happening also portended something else that was happening. Oh. And that all of the one dreamed of, in the best sense of, I'm using LSD as an example, the best sense of what that we thought that would allow, or the dream, or the expectations, or the possibilities, were false expectations and false possibilities. Somehow that occurred to me. Even though I'm a poet, so one's a part of this, they were all friends of mine, Allen Ginsberg and Abby Hoffman, and even though one's a part of this love and light, I'm performing in festivals, and it's all sort of love and light and flower power, one knew it wasn't quite true the way it's being presented to everyone. One sort of knew that always, and then suddenly by the 68 and on, and the radical politics kicked in 68 and 9 and whatever. So the 60s, I have this thing that the 60s never really existed the way they exist in the media. Flower power and hippies and love and light and those euphoria and just everything being great. I'm a great proponent of drugs. I think that Andy Warhol's great work was done because Andy Warhol is a great artist. Inside of that, one of the major causes is the speed. Amphetamine is a drug called amphetamines, and the particular one he took was Oberdrol. And that was the speed that he took, which generated, high on speed, generated all of the great work. We were all suffering because what LSD does, among other things, it makes you very aware of your own mind. And if you have poisons in you, like I had and we all have, they allow those poisons to come out, which causes suffering for yourself. And then you see it. So, I mean, that's great beneficial to see what's causing your own suffering, because then you can let go of it. So this was happening with everybody who took drugs in the 60s. The drugs, in the case of Andy Warhol, drugs should be respected for what they gave to Andy. Not any kind of discrimination of just say no to drugs. It's like just saying no to Andy Warhol. Say yes to Andy Warhol and the drugs he took. In the 60s, it started in the 60s, and it was directly related to LSD because of one of the things that LSD dissolves is discrimination, that this is bad and this is good. Everything seems, in the best sense, both are good. Bad and good is. Bad is not bad and good is not good. It's something else. It's beyond. It's a step toward beyond all concepts, beyond discrimination of bad and good. Yes and no. I mean, there was speed damage for anybody who really abused it.
Right.
And then there was no speed damage from people who really abused it too. I mean, like somebody like Bridget Berlin. In my mind, she had no speed damage. There she would be sticking needles in herself anytime if she was here. She'd just stick a needle through her dress. It was always great to see. So early, in terms of drugs, the early 60s was sort of like the baby time of drugs. One didn't know. You get jolted with this adrenaline, and that the result is a heightened clarity and a heightened sharpness of perception, and a heightened then sharpness of progression of ideas. Like you can see you can develop an idea or whatever. Psilocybin mushrooms or magic mushrooms or LSD are the exact opposite. They have nothing to do with adrenaline. It has to do with another chemical reaction in your body of releasing sort of sacred substances that are different than the sacred substances of amphetamine. It's another form of clarity. It is exactly the same. It's just another form. It's another view of reality. Oberdrol was prescribed, but I'm sure he took other ones too. I mean, I remember one time him putting in a bunch of 3 or 4 of these little orange things. Wow. And then there were the casualty people who actually, they got really burned out with it. Presumably it can do some damage. I think it's all how you use it. Like I took a lot of sleep, but I was always like Andy. I always had the next day. I always had projects that I was working on that I had to sort of be together at some point. I'd pop all these pills as much as, well, maybe take a day rest and then take another. But they were all sort of. There were a lot of other great names. Purple Hearts was one that Ted Berrigan used.
The Purple Hearts and their Black Beauties.
Black Beauties and Purple Hearts. And they were so strong that I would never take one every day because you took one and it lasted for 2 days. Right. So then I'd rest on the 3rd day and then take maybe 2 other lighter ones the day after. So indeed, people got killed by all drugs. They got killed by LSD, which is not particularly a threatening drug at all. And they're not addictive and not. So it's how you used it. You're calmer, and indeed that was true. But inside of that, we were all, me being one of them, we were all suffering because what LSD does among other things, it makes you very aware of your own mind. And if you have poisons in you, like I had, and we all have, they allow those poisons to come out, which causes suffering for yourself. And then you see it. So, I mean, that's great beneficial to see what's causing your own suffering, because then you can let go of it. I mean, he was much of a speedhead as everyone else. He wouldn't stay up for 5 days like Andy, because Andy was professional, and he knew that he had to operate the next morning, or the next afternoon rather, in a real way with money. I mean, dealing with money, whether it was still the commercial money coming in to pay the bills in the early 60s, he was still doing those commercial drawings, or it was just the practical details of his life as an artist. So he had to be a little straight. But many times, there were other pills, little pink ones. They're not little pink ones, little orange ones, and you'd see him take 2 or 3 at a time. Those were more like Dexamyl. What really happened in in our work, because it's America and Europe was the same time, was the drugs of the 70s, which were LSD one, but it was also something called, in those years, was called MDA, which is now called ecstasy. There was ecstasy, it was ecstasy or MDA, which again dissolves barriers. And then there were other drugs called quaaludes,
yes,
which also had that same effect. So there's a real phenomenon that took place. I pinpoint the years from like the earliest being 74 through 81. When, and particularly in the late 70s, the real years were 77, 78, and 79, when really enormous quantities of straight guys were making it with other guys just because it was okay. So that's what started, and indeed many LSD trips that were sort of group-oriented in the 60s. The straight guys would make it with other guys. I made it with guys who were straight, or they would make, or you'd be making it with a couple of women, and there would be a couple of men and women, and the women would make it with the women, and the guys would make it with each other, and then they would make it with each other. Everybody felt really relaxed making it with a guy on occasion, whenever they wanted to, because they were secure that they were heterosexual. It wasn't a problem about being gay and then being called a fag and then not being straight in my world. In 77 through the late 70s, everybody felt really relaxed about doing it. So it was sort of a goal, even though one has forgotten about it, it was a golden age of gay promiscuity, of all promiscuity, gay, golden age of promiscuity, straight or gay. And it was really unique because it was an accumulation of mind changes from the 1960s. I mean, whatever happened with LSD in the 60s, to some of these guys didn't even do it because they were too young in the 60s, but all of it together created a thing. It just amazes me that I believe almost like 40 or 50% of men in America within a reasonable age, from 20 to 40, 40 or 50% mated with other guys. Just waiting for a bus, they went into a bar, or they're waiting for an airplane, or they picked up somebody, or somebody they got attracted to, or whatever. And that completely ended with the advent of AIDS. By 1982 was the actual death knell that I don't think any bisexual man or a straight man mated with another guy. From that point, obviously they did, but that was the point. When it was called gay men's disease, that it absolutely stopped. That by 84, if you had to be mad to be promiscuous, straight or gay, and by 85 and 6, you'd rather die than make it with a gay guy, because you're going to die if you make it with a gay guy, which created a mindset that promiscuity does not exist anymore. Straight guys obviously on occasion make it with gay guys, and there's gay promiscuity because we know about it, but it ceased to exist in 82 when it was called, and I'm sure actually a bunch of those straight guys died. Straight guys, bisexual died, because when you made it with many people I know who died in 1979, 80, and 81, nobody even knew it was called a gay men's disease. Or gay-related AIDS, or gay-related whatever it was called. They just got sick and died of cancer. Nobody was going to ever, their wives or family is not going to call it anything other than cancer. They died of cancer. Because the thing about prostitution is that it's absolute abandon with no concepts.
Yeah.
That's what I started my AIDS treatment regimen, was that year, 82, or 82, and then I got formally started in 83 and 4, was that when somebody one liked, one never said, I don't know your name. Right, we haven't been introduced. One, you just made eye contact and went someplace you could fuck, And when people got AIDS, my thought was, that's the same thing. I can't. At first, it's when a 28-year-old who has AIDS looks as though he's 70, and you would never say. I couldn't say to somebody who's 28 who looks 70, I can't help you because I don't know your name. There began this thing of my AIDS treatment was helping everyone who's sick. The same way one would have gone to bed with them, sort of absolute abandon. One takes care of their needs, and in my case it was giving money, but not giving money, treating them as a friend I was going to help and hug, and I couldn't. And being a gay man, it's easy to hug another man. I can't say I don't know you, I can't hug you because you're sick and dying. So anyway, that's what gave rise to my AIDS treatment project, which still goes on to this day. Being gay is the kiss of death now, as it was 40 years ago. Let me just tell you one other thing that you may be able to edit into. Is the other really important influence that came from all of Andy and the pop artists is the way they were homophobic. Andy was homophobic in his work out of self-preservation and self-protection. I was the opposite, because I wasn't a painter or a sculptor. I didn't have a gallery. I had nothing to lose. So and in fact, perhaps I was more gay in my work than I should have been, but it was a reaction against the pop artists and Andy and Bob and Jasper and all the rest of them, who was so homophobic. I thought to myself, if they don't do it just because they can't sell the fucking stupid painting to some stupid collector to put over a couch, that's no reason not to do it. In fact, the fact that I'm a gay man and expressing what's in my heart, that's all that's important. But it was all inside their mind. It was inside their mind, almost like Bob and Jasper are completely other species of artists. But it's funny, they work the same way. Jasper, being the most conservative of them all, but worked from that same way. He got just get rid of ideas rather than doing them. But it was the same pressure to see him get rid of the ideas and not do them was actually sort of anti-pop. But on the other hand, they were so close to each other. And then Bob had to be careful in between. He wasn't a pop artist. He wanted very seriously not to be a pop artist because it would compromise his august position as being Paul Rauschenberg. But he worked the same way. He just saw ideas.
Had you known Freddie Herko much?
Quite well.
Quite well.
Because it was Andy, I knew him through the downtown scene, and then that scene was the same as Andy. So I saw Freddie all the time. Here at 222 Bowery or at Judson Dance Theater or any one of the things. The reason why Freddie probably was very important to Andy was that he was the opposite of Andy and the same, the opposite being the same. There is Freddie, a dancer, and taking speed and LSD even, and those, it was early for LSD. I think Freddie took LSD.
He did.
And being a dancer, he could move. elaborately and magnificently. And there's Andy, by the nature of him being sort of so frail and tight, Andy couldn't move. I mean, for him to do this, it was as far as, and there's Freddie. So the movement. And yet Freddie was gay, so they had the connection of being gay and the freedom of movement and the freedom of amphetamines that allowed movement bigger than even imaginable. The day that Freddie Herko committed suicide, I was with Andy. And we found out it together. And Andy's first reaction was, how could he have done it and not told me? How could he have done it? He knew I wanted to make a movie of it. And it was really deeply moving. It wasn't Andy exploited. Somebody committed suicide and Andy's trying to turn it into a movie called Suicide. But it was Andy's way of expressing his deep love for Freddie. I mean, Andy really loved, really loved Freddie Herko. Yeah. How could he have done it and not told me? Was Andy's way of crying.
Artifacts is a free oral histories platform. Please like, subscribe, and visit our website, www.artifacts.movie, for an ad-free, interactive experience with bonus content. If you're able, please make a tax-deductible donation at www.artifacts.movie/donate. Hit the link on screen to watch another Artifacts interview.